See that, sister? Who's in the picture? You are. You're in the picture, sister. Mm-hmm.
Well, welcome everybody. It's good to see you here again. How's the sound? A little? Okay. Yeah, I've got my mask on this week because I'm have some travel plans coming up, and so just taking some precautions. But I will try to remember to speak louder, especially with the mask. How does the sound sound on Zoom, folks? Could I get a thumbs up? Okay, got a couple. Great. Well, welcome. It's really good to see folks here again. You know, when people come back, it's it really is, I don't know, it's special, it's heartfelt to see interest and some level of commitment and dedication. So let's just take a couple minutes to settle in. We'll just spend some, maybe 5 minutes sitting together. You can close your eyes if that's helpful. Take a couple of deep breaths. Filling the lungs naturally. Have a sense of the body sitting on a chair or maybe a cushion or maybe even lying down. Just feeling into what it's like to have a body. You might notice any sensations that arise. Or just taking a moment to settle in, arrive here. Maybe express some gratitude for ourselves, for being present, for following that instinct to see what's good and wholesome in the present moment. Maybe notice if there's any sense of calm or ease. So settling into wherever we are right now. And sensing into maybe negative states that aren't present. If there's a little less worrying or planning. Notice maybe the wholesomeness of not doing anything or trying to get somewhere or do something. And in the last few minutes, you can open your awareness to anything that comes to your experience. It might be sounds, sensations, noticing how they come and go. Maybe getting a sense that trusting that coming and going, trusting the okayness of just being here. Can happen naturally without a lot of effort. So taking a minute to come back, open the eyes, maybe just take a look around, get a sense of where you are, even if you're at home in a place that you've been all the time. Sometimes, after sitting, you might notice that your senses are a little bit stronger. Colors might be brighter, sounds might be richer. And it's nice to take that in. So I wanted to start off today. We're going to continue talking about how to work with difficult mind states or difficult distractions. And we'll also talk about some practices like loving kindness or metta, and how to develop wholesome states. I wanted to start a little bit though by just talking about, you might have noticed after some sits, Mark and I sometimes do a bow. You might notice other people do a bow. And I want to just acknowledge that, especially in, kind of Western American culture, that might feel a little different. It might feel a little weird. Buddhism started in India and Asia and traveled to other Asian countries. And so bowing culturally, is a very natural sign of humility. It's a sign of respect. One of the ways that I think of bowing, and there are many different ways to think about it, is for me, it's a mindful pause. I like to do it after I sit because I'm reminded that, I did something important for myself. And I just want to acknowledge that, it's just a pause to just create some closing, even some sense of like specialness or sacredness around it. Another reason why I like to bow is because for me, it's also a way to honor a basic goodness, both in myself, basic goodness in everybody I see and meet. And again, it's just a reminder to honor that and to remember that, because I forget most of my waking hours of my own basic goodness and the basic goodness of people around me. So I also share that is to say it's not a practice that is in any way required to practice mindfulness. But I think it's helpful just to understand some of the background of the forms that you see here that are not often as present in especially Western/American Buddhist centers, but is very much deep in the heart of the practice and the origins of the practice. So, the last class I talked about this question of asking this question of, can this be okay? And there were some great questions about that question that were raised, I think, during the Q&A and after. And so I wanted to follow up on that a little bit. A lot of times when we ask the question is, can this be okay? If it's some sense of restlessness, sleepiness, some emotion like anger that's really disturbing, a lot of times that answer is going to be no, like this is not okay. I don't enjoy feeling this way. These sensations are not comfortable. They remind me of a lot of other times I've been uncomfortable, and I think Mark mentioned the Pema Chodron's line about not underestimating the desire to bolt. It's sort of a natural human condition, when there's something unpleasant, kind of run for the hills, or a Starbucks drink, or a television show, or whatever it is. And so, we ask that question, can this be okay? Not as a way to measure ourselves, not as a way to say this is right or this is wrong, or can I give myself a grade about this? But it's really just another kind of mindful pause, because usually distractions, especially when they're strong, take up a lot of our experience. That's why they're so distracting, because they take up so much of our experience. So the question of, can this be okay, is just for us to take a breath and also check in with, how are we relating to this experience? Because again, it's not just about, can I sense my bodily sensations? Can I hear sounds? But also more subtle awareness is about, how am I relating to that? And so one way to practice when there's a strong distraction or a strong emotion is to kind of just continue the practice. And so if I ask, can this restlessness in my body, can this feeling of restlessness be okay? And the answer is no. And then what I'm being aware of now is that I have this resistance. I don't like this restlessness. Can this be okay? Can I bring even just a little bit of acceptance to my resistance to it? Can I let the resistance just be okay? Because we're not trying to, again, like now push away the resistance. We didn't like the restlessness. Now we are not liking the restlessness. So it's not about getting rid of things, but just kind of developing this practice and habit of making space for them. And something else that's helpful is, if I'm feeling resistance, can this be okay? What does aversion, what does dislike feel like in the body? Is another helpful tool to help us bring us back in the present moment. For me, it's some tightness. Sometimes it's some heat or warmth. If I'm already getting to the anger stage, or just a lot of energy is coming up. So by, again, bringing ourselves back to the body, we are practicing being in the present moment, because that's where our sensations happen. They're in the present moment. And when we're in the present moment, there's less chances for us to get lost in some story about the restlessness, or maybe the aversion. I don't, my shoulders are tight and I feel like they're tight, and that brings back a memory of me being tight about this project at work. And so we can kind of get lost in stories when certain distractions or strong emotions pull us away. So when we come back to the body and just say, well, how does this feel right now? We're naturally just bringing ourselves back to the present moment. And we're reducing our chances of going off in a story or making whatever experience we're having even worse. Because when we're more present, the heart mind is less likely to be thrown off balance, and that's really helpful in daily life, I think. And then another thing that we're doing is that we are, by having some sense of acceptance or having some aspiration, can this be okay? Don't be so hard on yourself. This can be okay. We're just encouraging a more natural habit of, again, reminding ourselves of the basic goodness that is here, that we have this kind of natural awareness to be present. And so a lot of times we think of like distractions or as being things that are messing up our practice, but really every time we practice some compassion and some friendliness towards ourselves, and whatever that means and whatever that looks like, I'm not saying that we need to sit through and kind of bear every experience or feeling that we may have while we're sitting. Sometimes it's skillful if emotions come up, if there's too much energy and you feel that the body is being overwhelmed, to take a pause, to open your eyes, maybe do some walking meditation, maybe do some mindful dishwashing meditation. So it doesn't have to look like sitting in a chair or a cushion 30 minutes, because what we're practicing sitting on a chair and sitting on a cushion is just these habits to kind of build upon, so that when we're in daily life, we're strengthening a little bit more space in what we're doing. We're strengthening a little bit more awareness, so that we have some options to make choices. And again, remember what's important to us. What do we care about? What do we value? And so that's a lot of what we're doing here. And one of the ways that we kind of let go naturally or abandon some of these maybe habits that we have is by doing this practice, is by strengthening this idea of coming back, of, saying it's okay, it's going to be okay, and just coming back to the body. I'll share, I mentioned that I'm going on a trip, and it's a pretty big family trip. And, one of my habits and tendencies when I'm either busy or under some stress is that I tend to have a glass half empty mind. I'm really good at sort of going down the worst case scenarios of situations when I'm feeling a little stressed. And so, I've been thinking about, all of these things come up, am I being safe enough so that everybody's healthy on the trip? Are the gifts that I want to give people, do I have enough? Are they good enough? The mind just starts sort of spinning because really deep down, I'm just kind of nervous about so many things I don't have control over, is really what it's getting down to. But what I've noticed over practice is that I can see, I can see myself spinning and I can see what's happening because I've had some sense of what that feels like when I do get kind of caught up. And so I have that practice of that seed of, oh, it can actually be okay to not know what's going to happen. And I can still be afraid, but I don't have to be extra afraid. Like the extra, if we can just get rid of the extra, I feel like, life is, relatively challenging as it is, but there's a lot of extra that we do to make it, I think even more challenging. And, I was thinking about this idea of how do we kind of slow down sort of our experience, which is what I feel like we're doing in practice when we come back over and over. And it made me think of sort of, I don't know how movies are made now, but my understanding was that when you make a movie, you have like these still images, right? And they're just different frames. And you play the frames fast enough so it looks like there's some motion. I guess like each still image is shown for like 1/30th of a second, and then you go to the next image and you get this motion. And what we're doing in this practice is slowing down those frames so that we have a little bit more space, a little bit more awareness of what you're doing, so that when I start to get really tight and worrying about something that I know I really don't have a lot of control over, I feel it in my body and something in my mind says, oh, Jen, we've been to this movie before. We know how this turns out. Do we really want to do this again? And sometimes, I'll keep doing it, but there'll still be a little awareness there. And then sometimes, the opening credits will start of a particular movie for me. And I'll be like, oh, I don't have time for that right now. And I don't like consciously think that, but you just start to like let go because you're like, oh, it's not helpful. I've got other things I want to do and other ways of being. So I share that, as it's just part of, an example, maybe a metaphor of what we're doing here. And the other thing is that we'll also notice that, these distractions, they come and go, they arise and pass. And so we're learning and developing some patience as well, which is really helpful. So again, I said there's no, I didn't say this, but one of the things I was trying to say is that there's no real formula of practicing, in a sense that, Mark and I are sharing different tools, different questions to give you kind of options of what to do when you're practicing. And sometimes, the skillful way of handling a distraction is to really just be with it, depending on how we're feeling, what our capacity is. And sometimes a skillful way to deal with a really strong emotion is to do what you need to do in order to calm the nervous system down. Maybe that's petting your pet. Maybe that's just taking a mindful walk around the block. But again, the point is really just to stay aware. I'm gonna turn it over to Mark now to talk about another strategy to help with difficult mind states, which is really strengthening wholesome qualities like metta and loving kindness.
Good evening, everyone. Nice to be back together. One more week after this, our 5-week commitment to get a sense of these practices from the Buddha about being present. And as Jen was saying, the last 2 weeks especially, the Buddha talks about 4 kinds of efforts or exertions. And in terms of the difficult qualities or habits of our mind, we want to prevent restlessness or greediness or aversiveness, sleepiness even, right? Doubt. These unhelpful qualities that we call hindrances, we want to prevent them from arising, getting established in our mind. And if they do get established, we want to learn how, we want some skill about abandoning them, right? Well, it turns out, and I'm sure this is going to be obvious, that one of the best ways to prevent and abandon unhelpful, unwholesome, hindering qualities in our mind is to develop and maintain wholesome qualities, right? And one of the most wholesome qualities is just that basic attitude of kindness or friendliness. And we might think, oh, I need special circumstances in order to feel friendly, good-hearted, open-hearted, and these aren't those circumstances. This is a circumstance to be grumpy, or to be aversive, or to be fearful, anxious, or desirous, or whatever. But that often is just due to a lack of imagination. Like, are there really, like just scanning back on our day today, shopping for groceries or doing your job or taking care of business at home, interacting with this person or that person. Is it really true that at any moment during our day today, that we wouldn't have been capable of being in that moment, relating to that moment, engaging that moment with a friendly, generous, kindly heart? Right? I mean, because kindness, that's one of the images they use in early Buddhism. Kindness has a nimbleness in the same way, the simile is in the same way that if you pour water into any shaped vessel, a fancy vase or a plain cup or a strange, water effortlessly fills that particular space. That's its nature, right? It doesn't have a problem. And that's the image, the simile that's used about that attitude of metta, which is, metta is often gets translated as loving kindness, but yeah, it's not any kind of contrived or unusual state. It's just that basic goodness, basic friendliness, that basic capacity to include the way it is. Like, oh yeah, this belongs too. Or even turned in toward ourselves, like this grumpy state of mind. So like with metta, we're not against the grumpiness. We have metta for the grumpiness. Oh, sometimes the mind is grumpy. I'm okay with that. Honey, you belong too, right? And lo and behold, that changes the expression of the grumpiness. To have metta, to be friendly and generous and kind toward the grumpiness, is it really still grumpiness? It's kindness towards grumpiness. It's not grumpiness anymore. Just the same way, if you're really angry and then there's some space of wisdom and you realize, I'm really angry and it really hurts being angry. And here's the turning point. It's never, compassion and kindness is never far away. I care about this anger that's burning my, heart. I care about it. It hurts and I care. So that's what I meant about it's a matter of imagination, like, well, maybe this is a fine moment for goodness of heart, metta, kindness. I wonder how that might look and feel right now in this moment, or in this moment, or stuck in traffic, or going all the way to the grocery store and they don't have what we need, or appreciating something really beautiful, seeing some kids playing next door, and just that opening of the heart. Oh, you're happy. May you continue to be happy. You know, we don't even have to say it. It might be weird to go up to little kids. May your happiness continue. But that's the feeling in the heart, right? Like, oh yeah, may your happiness continue. May it increase, may it never end. Of course it will end. I know that you're not always going to be happy, kids. But my wish is that your happiness continue. And that's real. Even though there's wisdom that understands, yeah, it's probably not always going to be this way, but I wish that your happiness continue. That's not idealistic. That's just a generous wish. May the war in Ukraine cease. May those people learn how to be next to each other without killing and harming each other, right? That may not happen, but that wish can be very real. So the first thing, in order to cultivate a quality like loving kindness, to develop it and to maintain it so that it becomes our predominant habit or attitude, right? It's like just like grumpiness for some of us, or defensiveness or greediness, always noticing the nice things. Oh, I want a pair of slacks like that. And I want to, we have these different personality types. Well, how did they get to be our personality type? Well, it arose and then it got ossified. It became a habit, and now we're the grumpy one, or the defensive one, or the controlling one, or we can. And the thing about these wholesome attitudes of mind is they work well, they're functional, like just in terms of us doing what we have to do in life, and they're pleasant, and they're healing, and they're supportive of awareness. When we're aware that there's this attitude of kindness, it becomes self-reinforcing, because noticing that my heart is relating with kindness is also noticing that it's functional and feels good, which increases, it's sort of what deepens the habit or the groove of relating that way. But there's this important first step, which is really challenging the notion that we can have that for some reason loving kindness or having a friendly attitude isn't appropriate. The world needs my grumpiness. If I'm not aversive, my kids are going to walk all over me. Well, can't we be, put our foot down, like if you're raising younger children, can't we put our foot down in a way that is can still allow for the heart to be loving and friendly? I love you, but I can't let you do that. You're only 12. I'm not giving you the cars for the key, or the keys to the car. So we need that kind of like, maybe I don't need to jettison the kindness just because I have to speak strongly to this person, say what needs to be said. Maybe I can do everything I need to do with kindness and compassion and appreciation and equanimity. These are the 4 qualities. So when you get a chance, take a look at that handout for week 5, because it goes more in depth. It's different than the one I gave you tonight. And for those of you online, I put it into the chat. I think everyone got it already. But let me just put it in case someone just arrived on Zoom lately. And this is what I thought we would do for our practice tonight. We'll do this for about 25 minutes, 20 minutes, and then we'll save maybe 5 or 10 minutes at the end of our 30-minute sit for just more of the mindfulness practice. And it'll give you a chance to see how your present moment awareness, mindful awareness practice has really been stabilized by having kept the attitude of loving kindness in mind. That's how we do loving kindness practice or compassion practice or appreciative joy or equanimity practice. We find a way back, a creative way back to that attitude using our imagination, using our memory. And then the memory helps us remember, oh yeah, this heart's capable of being loving. Then we bring the attention to the loving heart, the openness, generous goodness of the heart. Now we don't need the memory anymore until you do, because we're keeping almost like a radiant goodness. So the first step that you see in the handout is that we have to, each of us, depending on our own personality type and our own history, we have to find a way to arouse, to remember with confidence, this heart right now is capable of goodness. How do I know? Well, I remember earlier today holding my cat next to my heart. And in those moments, as I'm remembering right now, in this moment, in those moments, that love was really simple and pure. And just the memory of that pure, generous love is a little bit of that pure, generous love, right? And then I drop the memory. I don't push it away, but I put the attention on the feeling of that goodness right here and now. That's my meditation object. And then I keep it in mind. Right? It might be just, and if your heart is ossified and twisted steel, it might hurt a little when you bring that love back. Like, oh yeah. And then the next stage, like when you're able to keep that attitude of loving kindness, that goodness of heart, when you're able to keep it in mind, then the next thing to notice is its very nature is generosity, is to expand and include. So if I remember my cat, and then I put my attention on the goodness of the heart, then I'll notice that goodness of a heart, it's like, oh yeah, Jen, may you be happy too. It's like I don't have to oh, now I got to send love to Jen. It's just naturally, oh yeah, and all of you, may you be happy, may you be at ease. That's its nature, but we want to notice that expansive, generous nature. That's how we keep it in mind. And then eventually, when we get good at noticing the expansive, radiant, generous nature of metta, loving kindness, then we'll notice its boundlessness. And that we're just sitting, a human being, feeling some goodness of heart, and noticing that whatever the mind knows, whatever is being felt, whatever is being conceived of, is colored by that love. Like the love almost has infused the awareness. So whatever one is aware of is, in a sense, I mean, these are just words, but being held by that goodness. And you probably, if you have a really beautiful interaction with someone, do you notice it's sort of like all of life as you're driving home, and it's sort of like, and I love you too, and I love you, right? It's contagious. So that boundlessness is an important quality to realize, this can be a stable, all-inclusive attitude. It's not specific to my cat. It goes everywhere. And then the last stage is to stop thinking you have to do the loving, the generosity of heart, and it's more like just abiding or trusting that goodness. That there doesn't have to be a me. It's not like a Buddhist move I'm doing to be radiantly loving. I can just rest, trust in the love. That's what you call a good meditation, right? So what we're going to do during the half an hour sit for the first part of it, we'll go through, I'll give you some instructions for each of these 4 stages so you get a taste. But first, why don't we just stretch our legs, stand, move your body a little bit so you'll be comfortable sitting for about 30 minutes. And maybe in 2 or 3 minutes, we'll begin. So whenever you feel ready, no hurry, but just settle back into your posture for the meditation time. There are many ways to begin the metta practice. One of the ways I like to do it is just to begin with this relationship, how we relate to our body, the sitting body now. So one nice thing we can do, as you know, at the beginning of the sit is just take some time to breathe in slowly and fill the lungs in a kind way, gentle way. And then to breathe out in a long, full way so that we're emptying the lungs. And to do this as an act of kindness, maybe 3 or 4 times. Take your time though. You don't have to rush at all. Filling the lungs, emptying the lungs as an act of kindness. And we'll finish with the next long, easy exhalation. And simply allow the breathing to continue on its own. Fortunately, the body knows how to breathe. We don't need to manage the breathing process. We just simply recognize the experience of the sitting body and realize that I do in fact care about the body. And right now I care enough to be close, to be willing to feel whatever's here to feel, the sitting body. Even if it's unpleasant, because I care about this living creature, this body, I'm willing to be close. And I'm willing to forgive however it feels now. I don't need to judge it or hate it. And I care enough about the body that I can even though it might seem a little strange at first, I can even wish well for the body. May this body be safe. And you can repeat silently some of these phrases. Just check it out. May this body be safe. May deep wisdom and love protect this body. And may the body here be happy and peaceful. And may it be at ease through all the twists and turns of life. May this body be at ease. And again, just remembering the simple truth, I do care about this body. I care enough to be close and to feel whatever I feel now. Not to be afraid to feel the body. And I care enough to wish well for the body. May the deepest wisdom and love protect this body always. And may the body be happy and peaceful. And may this body live with ease through all the twists and turns. And you can even sense this generous goodness of our heart, this generous smile, even this warm, energetic embrace. Doesn't mean the body doesn't have its aches and pains. It just means that we're able to care and to wish well. May the deepest wisdom and love protect and guide this body always. And may the body be happy and peaceful and living with ease through all the twists and turns. And I also care about the sensitive heart right here in the middle. This feeling, sensitive heart. I care enough right now to be close, to keep the heart in mind right now, to not forget, to be willing to feel the heart. And I care enough about this heart to offer some generous wishes. May the deepest wisdom and love protect and guide this heart always. And may this heart be happy and peaceful. And may the heart live with ease through all the twists and turns of this life. May this heart be at ease. May this heart be at ease. And again, I care about this heart. May the deepest wisdom and love protect and guide this heart. May this heart, may I be happy and peaceful, living with ease through all the conditions of this life. Now try this on your own. Just feeling the capacity for this goodness of heart, this kindness towards oneself, this body, this sensitive heart, this life right here. Feel free to change the phrases as you like. Keep it simple. And you can always begin again. We're learning how to keep loving kindness in mind, this attitude, and to feel the generosity, the upwelling, its radiant qualities, its boundless, inclusive nature, and then to really trust and abide and relax with that goodness. Let it fill the space of this heart, mind, body, and even the whole world. And you can bring others to mind, a pet, a good friend, but generally start with people or animals that are simple and easy to love. But with practice, you'll see that people will come to mind, even difficult people sometimes. And you realize, I don't have to be afraid of you. And even though I'm having some problems, I do wish for your own well-being. May you be at ease in your life. May you experience the deepest healing. And may you be free from suffering and all the causes for suffering. You'll feel that natural generosity going out to everyone. But we don't force it, we just let it develop naturally, starting where it's easy, just letting it build some momentum where we really trust that goodness and its expansive, eventually boundless nature. But you can always come back and just work with your metta towards yourself. We're just keeping metta in mind, loving kindness in mind. So we'll continue for another 5 or 10 minutes in silence. And sometimes you could just use a single word like kindness and just repeat it in a gentle pace just to help keep this attitude of loving kindness in mind. Remember, we're just recognizing this capacity we have to be relating to our experience with kindness. I care about this life. I care about this moment. I care about this world. May we all be at ease. Sometimes I just repeat the word ease as a gift to myself and a gift to the whole world. May our hearts be at ease. May all beings, myself included, be at ease. And for the last minute or so with this practice, we just practice trusting and abiding in this goodness of our heart, this capacity for kindness. And very gradually just aware that this is being known, sitting, feeling the body sitting is being known. And we're just letting the kindness infuse the mindful awareness. Sitting body is being known. Hearing is being known. The thinking and conceiving mind is being known. And we can notice how this mindful awareness has a similar inclusive quality as kindness does. We'll just do some open awareness practice, keeping the present moment in mind. And remember, with open awareness, the meditation anchors that we've been training with, like being aware of the breath coming in and going out, or being aware of the whole body sitting, posture, being aware of hearing. When we're doing open awareness practice, of course, those anchors are also being known. But as part of the totality of the present moment, everything's included. And checking the attitude of the mind without judgment, just notice. Notice how the mind's relating to the present moment. Notice if there's still kindness operating in the heart and mind. Is there still that potential to be relating in a kind and friendly way to whatever's being known? Kindness is really the opposite of fear and aversion. Or you could say the absence of fear and aversion. Is that a possibility now? And what would it look like or feel like? So you might want to try out this gesture, see if it feels good. Of course, there's no reason you have to do it, but it's just nice, as Jen said, to appreciate that we had time to sit, that we're trying to take care of our heart and our world in a deeper way. And so it's appropriate to have a little gratitude and appreciation for our efforts. It's really a good thing, and we should sense, oh yeah, it's a good thing to have done. So I'll pass it back to Jen for our discussion and Q&A time.
Thanks, Mark. So again, this is a time for questions. Folks on Zoom, if you want to raise your hand or just unmute yourselves, you can feel free to put something in the chat too. Folks in the room, you're welcome to come up so we can hand the mic to you, or if you'd prefer to stay seated, we can try to repeat your question to the group. And if you have a question, I think it's a pretty good bet that, I don't know, I'll say like 68% of the folks in the room have had that question at one point too. So and I'll start actually maybe with a question that came to us over email. And it's a question about how to practice and stay present at work, especially when your work involves a lot of people, involves a lot of interaction, involves a lot of caring and empathy, and some high stress moments too. And that's really the question that's sort of at the heart of the practice. And so one response might be to try out the loving kindness metta practice that Mark just shared. It's a great way to, hopefully you felt some sense of some goodness, some wholesome feelings of that. And even though the practice can seem a little clunky at first by saying phrases that you don't usually say, or use words that you don't usually say in your everyday life, we really encourage you to use phrases that make sense to you, and to also just bring some patience with the clunkiness or maybe even awkwardness that comes with that. Another way to stay awake and present while at work in difficult situations too is to kind of really lean into the sort of non-fear of being able to be present to whatever's being known. You know, again, that's kind of what we talked about a little bit tonight, this kind of kind acceptance, just acknowledgement. That practice, you know, develops this kind of power in some sense of being able to be with, you know, really difficult situations, really stressful situations. And, you know, I'm sure you've had an experience of being maybe in one of those situations, or just noticing, you know, other people who just by their presence, you know, have some sort of effect on the room. And, you know, I think a lot of those times it's because people have a sense of awareness of themselves. You know, they have some comfort and experience being in difficult situations. And so they have, again, just that confidence that you kind of develop over time. You know, I don't know how this is going to turn out. You know, I'm, you know, really nervous. I'm afraid. And, you know, this is okay too. So those are a couple of responses for that question. But anyone else, either in the room or on Zoom, have something they want to share with the group?
Remember, this is a generous act to share something.
Just a reminder too that we do record the question and answer session, and so just keep that in mind.
My name's Tony. One of the readings said something, I'm trying to remember and paraphrase it. Wanting something to happen is desire, not wanting it to happen is aversion. Not knowing whether something is happening is delusion. And especially with these new concepts that you're teaching us, and I'm trying not to get too in my head and theoretical about them, but then I find myself saying, is this happening? Like, am I experiencing metta or not? And going off onto questions about what counts and doesn't count as metta. So that seems like possibly delusion. And if you could just talk about that sort of obstacle.
Yeah. Thank you for that question. Sometimes it does seem that the teachings are a little contradictory, because as you said, you know, we don't want to fuel a desire for something to happen, and we also want to appreciate these wholesome qualities like kindness, friendliness, compassion. And so I'll speak to that and just say that there's a subtle difference between grasping, you know, and wanting something to happen. You know, there's a difference between that feeling of, I really want to get this metta right, and I'm trying to feel metta, but I'm not sure, you know, that you already sense that kind of tightness in that, right? In that. And so it's good to have a wholesome desire, you know, a wholesome wanting. We're all here, you know, I think for some wholesome reasons. And so I think what we're aiming for in the metta practice is, again, relying on that sort of relaxed, alert awareness, you know, of what's arising as we're saying these phrases, what's happening in our body, and being aware if we're getting, maybe a little too lost in a story or a thought or a judgment or criticizing, because it's really kind of more feeling into, it's kind of like putting that aspiration, may I have some ease. And then again, there's that mindful pause of like, what does that wish? What does that happen? What happens in our body? What sensations do we feel? And then as you get a sense of some goodness, to continue the practice. So I hope that's helpful. Mark, is there anything you want to add to that?
Well, maybe I'll just, it's really similar to what Jen just said, but what makes it really clear to me is my wanting something to happen doesn't increase the probability of it happening. It's just an unnecessary contraction in the moment. Like if we're single and we want to be in a relationship, or we're in a relationship and we want to be single, wanting that change is just a contraction. And what wisdom does as it grows in our lives is it's less interested in that contraction of wanting something to happen or wanting something to stop happening, and much more in this balanced and even neutral place of understanding cause and effect. So if we want a relationship, then we get involved in the supporting causes for getting into a relationship. And if we want to be out of a relationship, we get involved in the causes and conditions that lead to getting out of a relationship. But the wanting to be in it or the wanting to get out of it wanting a candy bar doesn't increase the odds of you getting the candy bar, right? And so that's the interesting thing about like our practice. One of my teachers, this Burmese Buddhist monk, says, wisdom is interested in causes. That's what wisdom wants to understand, the conditional or lawful cause and effect nature of how things come to be and how things cease or end. And we live in a lawful universe. We may not like its lawfulness, but it is lawful. And that doesn't mean we hold all the cards, but we can participate in the natural unfolding of things only if we have some sense of supporting causes, like how things come to be, how things change, how things go away, including the practice.
Thanks, Mark. Any other questions or just comments? How are things going? What have you been coming across? What surprised you? What's annoyed you? All of those things, again, are really helpful for other folks to hear.
I don't know if anybody in the room is coming up with a question, but first of all, I just wanted to say thanks to you, Jen and Mark, for this teaching. And then I was curious if it would be, well, if there's a difference between desire and intention. That's basically what I was wondering.
Thanks for that question. So what is the difference between desire and intention? And I think it's a good follow-up question to what, Mark was just sharing about, kind of like wanting a candy bar doesn't make a candy bar exist. I'm going to remember that because I really like candy bars. And so, so what comes to mind for me is that we can have an intention for myself or other people to, have some sense of happiness. That's my intention. And when I get quiet with that intention, I notice that intention is really strong. Like Mark said, these qualities, these wholesome qualities are boundless. They sort of, once you sort of open the door, then, it's like a party. If you just sort of keep feeding the crowd and keeping the music on. And so to me, that says that, that intention is really, it's almost always there when you start feeling into these wholesome qualities. And it's something that I may forget. So I may forget that I have that deep intention. But I don't, I don't feel as if that's ever going to go away. Now, I may not always act in ways that show that intention because I do forget. And so, how this kind of relates to the question of the difference between desire and intention is that, in some ways a desire is a little bit more maybe conditional. It might depend on a certain moment, or it might depend on what mood I'm in. And so it doesn't have as much roots, I guess, as saying an intention does, because when you have an intention, you're putting that out there without really that kind of strong attachment that desire has. And so you're letting go in some ways of the outcome. I can't control that the people that I love will always be happy, but I can always put that intention out there and mean it. Whereas sometimes if I have a, desire for the people that I love to always be happy, that desire takes on a little bit more of a, I want to see this outcome happen, and there's a little bit more tightness involved. So I hope that's helpful. Thank you. Really.
Very helpful.
Thanks for sharing. Anyone else? Now that maybe we've broken the Zoom silence a little bit, welcome to unmute yourselves, or maybe put a question in the chat that we can just re-say out loud, or in the room. Well, it might be that the heat has.
I have a bit of a question.
Please go ahead.
Just about what you just said. Well, first of all, again, thank you both so much. This has really been really helpful and great. But so when you say, I can't even exactly remember exactly what you said, but it almost sounded like you were saying that an intention is not attached to the outcome. So if I have an intention that I want, people to not feel pain, it's not attached to the outcome. But if I have a desire for people to feel pain, to not feel pain, then, that's attached to the outcome. And I guess I don't know. What is the use of making that distinction? I feel like why not say, I have an intention. I have an intention. I want people not to feel pain. And when they feel pain, that is painful for me. It feels like you're making good and bad. That to have the intention without the attachment is good, and have the desire, with the attachment to the people not feeling pain is bad on some level, or less good, or something that we want to replace. I'm just struggling with that part of this teaching. if I'm understanding it right.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And, maybe I'll clarify to say that the intention is not to sort of put something in a good and a bad category versus maybe what at times is more skillful or can lead to more skillful actions. And so again, it's kind of really nuanced here, sort of this difference between desire and intention. And, at some level, those words are a little bit synonymous, right? They mean, wanting something. So on that level, they're the same. I think maybe what I was trying to point to is that sometimes when we have strong desires, when we have strong attachments to outcomes, even when they're wholesome outcomes, that attachment, the strength of that desire can, one, I think, cloud sort of awareness. And it can also cloud a little bit the reality that, in a lot of cases, we don't have a lot of control with outcomes. And so if we're really attached to something happening, even if it's good, and that something, happens or doesn't happen, we can get really thrown off balance. So it's not to get rid of the intention. It's not even to get rid of the desire, but again, just bring a little bit more awareness maybe of what that difference might be if we see a really strong attachment to an outcome, versus that our desire is maybe even getting in the way of some outcome that we have. Mark, do you want anything else?
Thank you so much.
Yeah, that sounds just right to me, what Jen just said. I just wanted to say good night and also just encourage people to practice a little of the loving kindness, both informally, just as you're moving about the day, and then put aside a little time in your sitting, your formal sitting time, maybe at the beginning, first 5-10 minutes, or maybe at the end of your set, just to see, okay, can I arouse a natural, uncontrived goodness of heart? Can I bring it to mind? Can I keep it in mind? Can I feel its natural generosity? Can I experience that kind of boundless quality of that goodness? Can I relax with that and trust it completely because it's good? So play with that. And then the other thing we'll do this last week, week 5, next Tuesday, is we'll look more about practicing in daily life. And it would be really great to hear from you, like your own attempt to just be mindful at a business meeting or driving in traffic or cooking a meal or hanging out with your family or whatever it might be. What does it look like to be aware of the present moment in real life? What gets in the way? What makes it easy? And then share with the group next week, because we'll learn a lot from each other. And so resolve, like right now, resolve to just have moments, like even walking out of the center, those of you who are here or those at home doing whatever you're going to do next. Well, what would it be like to brush my teeth with awareness? What a radical thought, to actually do the practice all day long, right? Because this training we're doing, it's about a lifestyle of mindfulness. It's not about a 30-minute thing we do in the morning and then I can be distracted. We do the thing in the morning or the evening whenever you have your formal sitting time to support this lifestyle of awareness. Looking forward to seeing you all next week and wishing Jen safe travels as they fly over the ocean.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. It's good to be with everybody and be safe and take care. Good night.